From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. A court in Argentina has ordered the preventive detention of the former president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, over alleged bribery. The judge accuses Fernández of being involved in a bribery network that allegedly took place during her term in office. Before any arrest can occur, the Senate has to vote to remove her immunity. Many believe this is another case of political persecution against a progressive Latin American leader. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, has the latest.
As we expected, Judge Claudio Bonadío has ordered the preventive detention of the former president and current senator, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, for her alleged involvement in a bribery scandal. The investigation relates to the so-called notebook scandal. Some businessmen and more than a dozen officials from the government of former President Cristina Fernández have also been named in the case. This is seen as a political persecution against the former president by the justice system, particularly by Judge Bonadío. Senators and political groups have different views on this issue, but it seems there will be no action to lift her immunity until the judge gives a concrete ruling and produces evidence of the accusation he's making. So the current senator, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, will continue to enjoy her parliamentary privilege.
Thank you, Edgardo, for your report. And the accusations against Cristina Fernández came as the government of Mauricio Macri presented its draft budget for 2019 to Congress. The main aim of the budget is to achieve a zero deficit by 2019, in line with the demands of the International Monetary Fund. Following the announcement, the country's currency, the peso, rose slightly. Since April, the country has been engulfed in a currency crisis and mass protest. The government insists the budget will increase public spending.
We want to emphasize that this is an austere budget, but with clear priorities. While primary expenditures increased 24%, social expenditures increased 32%. The investment on social security increased by 35%. Health expenditures increased by 29%, with expenditures on vaccines and medicine increasing some 94% over the year.
The Congress of South African Trade Unions could elect its first woman president during its 13th meeting. Commissioners will also decide whether to continue supporting the African National Congress. The Congress of South African Trade Unions is taking place in Johannesburg. President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke at the meeting.
The resolution of the 54th Conference of the ANC decided that there should be expropriation of land without compensation, and this should take place without any fail. And it is going to happen, because that is a decision of our country. We want to utilize this as one of the comprehensive measures to accelerate land reform that will reduce poverty, that will strengthen the economy and increase agricultural output. And for those who think that this program of land reform means that we are going to give land to the elite, I want to make it very clear that our land reform program is not about giving land to the elite. It is about giving land to the ordinary people in our country and not the chosen few. So we will be seeking then to focus attention on ensuring that we improve agriculture, focus on agriculture, and enable our people, our compatriots who are involved in agriculture, particularly emerging farmers, are able to get the support that they need.
My colleague from Moja Media in Johannesburg, Brian Malanga, brings us more details from the conference.
We are at the 13th COSATU Congress. We've just listened to the president deliver his speech, the outgoing president, Duma Dlamini, and he was followed by the president of the Republic of South Africa, who is also the president of the ANC. Critical to their maiden speeches and to what they delivered this morning, they were intertwined. Actually, they had common themes, and what stood out for me this morning, or actually this afternoon, was the whole issue of gender. Gender seems to be top of the agenda at this Congress, and it's really hammered upon over and over again. And when one listens to the transformation that they want to see even in their top leadership, one gets a sense that we will be getting female leaders in the next few days, and we'll just keep you posted and we'll keep our ears close to the ground. But we gather that there are some female leaders that have been earmarked and that are being caucused to be postulated for a leadership position.
Thank you, Brian, for your report. And Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel has said he supports equal marriage. During an exclusive interview with Telesur, Díaz-Canel said recognizing same-sex marriage is another step towards eliminating discrimination. The new Cuban constitution will define marriage as between two people instead of between a man and a woman.
The approach of recognizing marriage between two people, without limitations, responds to a problem of eliminating all types of discrimination in society.
Díaz-Canel also said Cuba wants to dialogue with the U.S., but it won't accept conditions.
You cannot have dialogue where one side puts conditions on the other, where you have to give up your sovereignty and your independence. You cannot have talks where one side demands you accept their agenda, and that is what the United States has been doing for years.
The government of Guatemala has reaffirmed its decision to ban the head of the International Commission Against Impunity from the country. This comes after the Constitutional Court unanimously overruled President Jimmy Morales' decision to ban him from entering the country. Just over 2 weeks ago, Morales expelled the UN mission that was investigating him for alleged corruption. The decision prompted several protests. The presidential candidate for the Brazilian Workers' Party, Fernando Haddad, has been to visit former President Lula da Silva in prison. He said Lula was delighted with the way the campaign was proceeding, even though he was barred from standing.
Lula repeated that he will not trade his dignity for his freedom. He is convinced that the higher courts in Brazil and international bodies will find him innocent of the charges he was convicted of, because there is no proof. In fact, there isn't evidence that a crime was committed. In addition to that, he praised our campaign and its priorities focused on workers' interests, jobs, and education.
Thousands of people gathered in Sao Paulo on Sunday to demand that Lula be free from jail. More we have in this report.
People were indeed merry. They danced and sang together with local musicians. However, their party-like antics have a political side. They took to the streets to demand the release of Lula da Silva after 5 months of imprisonment.
It is important to use art for reivindicating our rights because they are taken away from us, even the right of making art. The coup that happened in Brazil was absolutely misogynist. It was against women in presidency, and now we are resisting and re-existing.
Free Lula's festival has taken place exactly 3 weeks before presidential elections of 7th October. This is the atmosphere right now in Avenida Paulista. Neither the prospect of being fined by Sao Paulo's mayor or the threat of violence could hold back the determination of the Brazilian people who marched to Paulista Avenue.
Fascism wants to take over the country, and we should take care to keep it away from the population. We need culture and art. That's the solution for our country, and not weapons.
Fernando Haddad, a presidential candidate of the Workers' Party, also took part in the festival. Notably, Paulista Avenue was turned into a strictly pedestrian-only zone with a cycle lane, so it should come as no surprise that the festival took place here.
Actually, we did have a candidate who could have won in the first round, but because he was disqualified, we have Lula's candidate. He made Lula's program belonged to his team. He is Fernando Haddad. Our job from now until October 7th is to turn Lula's votes into Haddad's votes.
A few days after his candidacy was announced, public opinion surveys show Fernando Haddad is in second in popularity, and in first place when the people know that he is Lula's candidate.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Bolivia's President Evo Morales has asked Chile for calm as the nation awaits a ruling regarding their maritime dispute. Morales also asked Chilean President Sebastián Piñera to find an understanding in the dispute. He also said, quote, "The wounds opened more than 100 years ago should be closed." Morales spoke after discussing the claim with a number of former presidents. The International Court of Justice in The Hague is expected to rule on the case.
After the discussion we had today, I'm sure that Bolivia will never give up its claims. We are optimistic because we have the truth and reason on our side. We are seeking justice. That is why I want to tell the press that it is going to be very important for all the Bolivian people. We have a lot of hope in the ruling of the International Court of Justice.
Chile's President Sebastián Piñera has said his country is willing to talk, but he insists the 1904 treaty should be respected, since it's the answer to the maritime dispute. The treaty was signed to put an end to the tensions between the two countries, defining their current borders. Bolivia continues to lead the charge for de-dollarization, a move against the power of the US dollar.
Bolivia remains the leader in the de-dollarization on the South American continent, with figures nearing 100% of the national currency used for savings and transactions, according to the first semester economic report from the central bank.
We can proudly say that at this time, more than 98% of bank loans are made in our national currency, and more than 87% of deposits in savings accounts are also made up of Bolivianos. This is something that no other country in Latin America has achieved before.
A decisive factor in maintaining economic stability and a strong national currency is that exchange rates have remained under control. The dollar has cost 6 bolivianos with 96 cents for the past 7 years.
Más del 98%.
Achieving and maintaining stability in currency exchange is one of the requirements for economic strength.
The stability of the national currency, the boliviano, contributes to people's confidence.
While other economies have dollarization levels in the 50 to 60% range, Bolivia records nearly 0%, after suffering through dollarization levels of nearly 100% back in 2004.
These factors have made it possible to strengthen the economy. It is expected to be one of the fastest growing in the region, growing 4.4% this year alone.
We have registered the lowest inflation rate in South America. High growth and low inflation is a very difficult combination to achieve, but data from August shows that credit disbursed through the financial system to the population is the highest ever.
Another outstanding fact about the financial sector is its ability to maintain low interest rates. The interest rate at the Bolivian Central Bank is a mere 0.5%.
Haiti's Prime Minister Jean-Henri Sant and his cabinet have been sworn in. The new government was ratified with 80 votes in favor, 5 against, and 4 abstentions. On Twitter, Sant asked Haitians to join forces for the happiness of the country. But the announcement of a new cabinet has fueled protests in the capital, Port-au-Prince. Fiery demonstrations erupted on Sunday following their ratification of Sant as prime minister. Protesters burned tires, blocked major roads, and vandalized properties. Special forces had to be called in to quell escalating tensions. The remains of 157 unidentified people were left unattended in a trailer near the town of Tlajomulco in central Mexico. Many of the bodies are believed to be victims of Mexico's war on drugs. They came from a morgue in the nearby city of Guadalajara that was at full capacity. After locals complained about the smell, the trailer was removed on Saturday. Mexico has seen over 30,000 murders last year. Most of them were gang-related. Our correspondent in Mexico City, Pablo Perez, reports.
Yesterday, a trailer with the remains of 157 bodies was removed from the town of Tlajomulco in the municipality of Jalisco. The prosecutor's office admitted the bodies were deposited there in a refrigerated box instead of a warehouse due to the lack of capacity. After a few hours of being abandoned there, residents of the area understandably started to complain about it. This prosecutor's office is the same that has been waiting for the construction of a crypt with a capacity for 700 bodies in the municipality of Tonala. They promised this could be a solution for this case, but it is important to note this was not the first time this kind of thing has happened. There were similar cases in the municipality of Jojutla, in the state of Morelos, where unidentified bodies were deposited without any kind of procedure. According to Alfredo Lecona of the organization Security Without War, this is a sign that the institutions are unable to handle the consequences of the violence that exists in Mexico.
Thank you, Pablo, for your report. And 1 year after Mexico's earthquake, residents of collapsed buildings are still homeless. Several victims are living in tents. They are urging the authorities to help them return to their homes. The earthquake killed over 350 people and flattened dozens of buildings in Mexico City.
It's been very hard on us. First, because we still don't have a building solution, so it's been a bit hard.
It's been very tough, seriously very tough, but I haven't had recurring dreams curiously. However, it's been very, very terribly hard.
President Enrique Peña Nieto has presided over his last military parade in Mexico. This at a time when there are questions about the role the armed forces are playing in domestic security.
In the biggest military parade in Mexico, the Army, Marines and Air Forces present their arms to the president and citizens who attend the parade in the center of the capital. But it's not all cheers. The use of the armed forces has been questioned all the way back to the days when former President Felipe Calderon ordered the soldiers to start the war against Narcos, a war which has left more than 170,000 dead.
The army is affected to some extent by the same thing. The entire country is affected by corruption.
I don't think the army has to assume security functions. It should help the population and obviously, in case there is a war.
After 11 years patrolling almost all states of the country, neither Calderon nor Enrique Peña Nieto pulled the military from domestic security functions.
The problem is that if the army is still assuming security functions, the police will never be trained. All politicians know how to solve it, but it is difficult for them to solve it politically.
Civil society organisations look to the new government to change this national security strategy. Critics say it is giving impunity to army forces to violate human rights.
Morena has always been on the side of fighting security without war. He has asked for the constitution to be applied.
The president-elect has said the army and the Marines will continue as normal for now. The Secretary of National Security says it is a temporary measure until forces are regularized.
Former trade union leaders at Ford in Argentina are suing the company's former bosses over torture. They say they were detained in the company's factory and tortured by members of the military dictatorship 4 decades ago. The union leaders were held in prison for 2 years. They say the former executives were complicit in the 1976 coup d'etat and the 7-year-long military dictatorship.
We were taken away in the worst way. We were held for 40 and 60 days, a year under national executive power and enduring all kinds of torture.
We are the voice of those who will not and perhaps never will see justice for the 30,000 people who disappeared as well.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. Russia and Turkey have agreed to create a buffer zone in Syria's Idlib. Presidents Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan reached an agreement to separate Syrian government troops from rebel forces in part of the Syrian province. All heavy weapons will be also withdrawn from the area. The demilitarized zone will come into force by October 15th.
We both agree that implementation of the planned steps will give a new momentum to the process of resolving of the Syrian conflict politically, allowing us to intensify work on the Geneva platform, and that will contribute to peace returning to Syrian soil.
Together we will ensure the detection and the prevention of provocations by third parties and violations of the agreement. With this aim, Russia and Turkey will carry out coordinated patrols on the borders on both sides of the demilitarized zone, which will be designated.
At least 100 people are presumed dead after several houses were buried in mud after a landslide caused by Typhoon Mangkhut in the Philippines. Rescuers are digging into the mountain of mud with their bare hands to recover the bodies. The Category 5 typhoon swept through the country with winds of 200 kilometers per hour over the weekend. Floods in Nigeria have killed over 100 people. Heavy rains have also forced thousands to flee their homes. The center of the country has been the most affected. Government is urging residents to relocate to safe places. The International Criminal Court has sentenced former Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba to 1 year in prison for witness tampering. Bemba and 5 others were found guilty of bribing witnesses during their war crime trial. He was acquitted of war crimes on appeal in June. The politician was barred from standing in December's presidential election.
Case reference ICC 105-113.
Demonstrators have blocked roads and shut down businesses in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. They are angry at the killing of 23 people in the outskirts of the city over the weekend. Protesters are challenging Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who has undertaken aggressive reforms regarding security. They are urging the government to stop violence. The Palestinian teenage activist Ahed Tamimi has spoken at the Humanity Celebration in France. She referred to Palestinian refugees and the occupation of her homeland. Tamimi became a symbol of the Palestinian resistance after she was arrested for slapping an Israeli soldier. She was released 2 months ago after serving 8 months. North and South Korean officials have been holding meetings ahead of the Inter-Korean Summit this Tuesday. South Korean President Moon Jae-in will meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in an attempt to normalize relations on the peninsula. Moon will go to the north for the third meeting. Denuclearization will be the main topic on the agenda. Our correspondent Isaura Diaz has more.
Everything is ready for the third Inter-Korean Summit, a historic summit between the South Korean President Moon Jae-in and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This summit will take place in North Korea's capital, Pyongyang, according to South Korean sources. Denuclearization will be the main topic in the agenda. The South Korean president will leave his country this Tuesday morning and should arrive to North Korea at 10 a.m. local time. But his first meeting with Kim will not take place until the afternoon. Afterwards, there will be an official welcome dinner. Moon Jae-in has 3 main goals. The first one, developing and improving the inter-Korean relationship. He also wants to promote dialogue between North Korea and the US. And finally, he wants to debate on how to reduce tensions in the peninsula and to avoid any attempt of a possible war. A group of over 90 people travelled to North Korea to prepare the summit. This is taking place now that Washington has said it will not recognise the armistice signed between the 2 Koreas. Let's recall that the war in the Korean peninsula for some continues as an armistice was signed instead of a peace agreement. This agreement is one of the requests made by North Korea to move forward in debating the rest of the topics.
Thank you, Isaura, for your report. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.